Super Wildcard Weekend is in the books. We now look ahead to the divisional round of the NFL playoffs 2021-2022. NFL playoffs, pretty underwhelming Super Wildcard Weekend, if you ask me, but a lot of big matchups to look forward to. The Packers re-enter the playoffs. The Titans re-enter the playoffs after getting first-round byes, with some intriguing matchups for those two teams to start off their playoff run to the Super Bowl 56, which will be out in LA. Me personally, completely happy with how the first round played out, as my bracket is currently perfect, 6-0, with the only upset being the San Francisco 49ers over the Dallas Cowboys. But Pooch Crew, thank you for being here for episode 128 of the Poogie Podcast. Appreciate you being here. Subscribe to the channel. Go find us on your preferred podcast streaming platform to get all notifications for when we post new videos, new content, all that good stuff. Subscribe, share, like, all that good stuff. And just thank you for supporting us. It really means a lot to us and to me specifically. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for being here. But I do want to welcome on Matt Maynard to the podcast. Matt, resident Ravens expert. Neither of our teams are in the playoffs right now, but thank you for being here to discuss some good teams in the NFL.
Yeah, definitely appreciate you having me on. It's always a pleasure. Like you said, both of our teams aren't in the playoffs, but you know what? It happens. We move on. We enjoy more football.
Yeah, we enjoy more football. We have 7 teams in the playoffs from each conference, so we get 3 games from each conference, which resulted in the first Monday night playoff game the NFL has done, which was fantastic. Last year, they had 6 games, 3 on Saturday and 3 on Sunday. This year, I think they did a little bit of a better job. Saturday at noon, that game last year was a little bit too much for me. I just wasn't ready for it. Waking up on a Saturday, it felt like Maction or something, like just a weird Saturday noon game. I think moving it to Monday night, kind of a better time slot, was better for the NFL. I definitely enjoyed it. But the NFL playoffs did start with a game that a lot of people were not necessarily intrigued by, but when it was all said and done, maybe we look back and say that was one of the better games of the weekend, and it was the Bengals versus the Raiders, and the Raiders marched into Cincinnati coming off a late victory on Monday night of Week 18 over the Chargers to clinch their playoff berth, and the Raiders barely missed out on the victory. It was a close 7-point game. Raiders had the opportunity to score a touchdown late in the fourth quarter to tie the game. Couldn't get the job done. What are your thoughts, Matt?
It was a good game. Unless a lot of people say it might be controversial. So what happened in the game? For those that don't know, there was a play I think it was in the first half. Joe Burrow was about to round out of bounds. He did it. He threw the ball before it was caught, and an advertent whistle was blown. So it's kind of weird of what happened, but they moved on and ended up being a touchdown. Bengals went on to win the game. I guess congratulations are in order. Bengals finally get their first playoff win in over 30 years. I despise that whole franchise, but I tip my hat off to them. They finally got their playoff win. They can finally get that rust off their shoulders. They finally get the hunch that's been sitting on there, that monkey on the back kind of deal, and they get to move on.
First playoff victory in 31 years for them, breaks one of the longest droughts in the NFL that the NFL has seen. So congratulations to the Bengals. And controversial or not, let's be real. If you ask 10 NFL fans, 9 out of the 10 are going to say the Bengals are the more talented team between those two teams. So I think the right team is moving on. If you want to say the Raiders got screwed, the Raiders got shafted, you're more than justified to say that. Inadvertent whistles happen, and unfortunately the refs didn't make the right call to replay the down. It turns into a Tyler Boyd touchdown in the back of the end zone. Joe Burrow, 24 of 34 for 244 yards and 2 touchdowns. But here's where I'm afraid for them moving forward. Joe Mixon just 48 yards on the ground. We've seen this time and time again in the playoffs. You have to have a balanced offensive attack for the most part. Most teams do, unless you do have a high-flying offense. We've seen flashes of that in the past from the Bengals with Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, but Joe Mixon's going to have to step it up moving forward, and we'll get to that matchup a little bit later on. As for the Raiders, I think that's a team that's just happy to be in the offseason. They just fired Mike Mayock. They haven't had their permanent head coach in about 3 months now since firing John Gruden, so that fan base needed this season to end before anyone else got arrested or anyone else got fired.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think I think what was tough about the Raiders was, after the field goal, they just couldn't get anything going offensively. And like I said, I think they should be happy going to the offseason. I think they had a successful year overall. I think Derek Carr has something to prove that potentially there's controversy that he might not be the franchise quarterback going to next season, but he balled out, finishing the top 5 in passing yards. And so with weapons he has in the backfield and what he's got throwing to, I think he's going to be just fine going into the offseason. Hopefully they can do some revamping on the offensive side and hopefully move forward from there.
Yeah, if he's not careful, he might turn into like that Kirk Cousins kind of quarterback where we kind of find out where his ceiling is, and he may be very closely approaching it. But let's move on to a rookie quarterback versus a franchise quarterback with something to prove. Bills versus Patriots on Saturday night. This was a snooze fest. If you were a Patriots fan, you probably turned this off after the first quarter. Bills, win this one 47-17 over the Patriots in a game that a lot of people thought Bill Belichick would use his voodoo magic to somehow keep this game close, and the exact opposite is exactly what happened.
Yeah, I mean, like Dave Portnoy said, it's absolutely embarrassing, I guess you can say, for the Patriots. I was shocked myself, to be honest. I thought this would be a much closer game considering Bill Belichick knows what he does in the playoffs. But, I mean, yeah, then again, he had Mac Jones as a rookie quarterback. But, I mean, I don't think it's entirely Mac Jones' fault. I mean, the defense gave up 47 points. Josh Allen basically just did what he could do. I mean, he was 21-25 for 308 yards, and he threw 5 touchdowns. So did he actually take the Viagra that he was supposed to take? That apparently is supposed to calm his nerves or help keep the bloodstream going. I don't know if that's actually true, but, I mean, he absolutely balled out. He just did what he could do, and they just took over from there.
Popping the performance-enhancing drug for a better performance in other areas of life. He may have done that for this game and completely owned the Patriots in this one. So it was a slugfest, and the Bills were able to do whatever the hell they wanted to. Highest scoring team of the wildcard round was the Bills, and for a while there, it was looking like the Patriots were going to be the lowest scoring team. They got a late touchdown to make it 17 versus 10 points is what they had. So ended up with 17 points there. Like you mentioned, Josh Allen with 5 touchdowns, just completely perfect. 4 incompletions the entire game. He had more touchdowns than incompletions in this game. And when you have that as a stat line, you expect to win by 30 points. Other note, Devin Singletary actually did score 2 touchdowns as well with 81 yards on the ground. And Dawson Knox came by 5 catches for 89 yards and 2 touchdowns himself. No one really in the Patriots could get going. The only stat line that stands out is Kendrick Bourne with 2 yards on 77 2 touchdowns, 77 yards off of 7 catches, 27-3 at halftime. This game was over. Luckily for any of the parents out there with young kids, they were able to put their kids to bed early and not miss a single thing in this game. So the Bills move on for an intriguing, and I mean intriguing, matchup coming up. Let's move on. Bucs versus Eagles, the 1:00 game on Sunday, the usual time slot for the NFL. And the Bucs, they kind of like gritted their way to this victory. It wasn't a flashy victory. It wasn't I guess dominant. You could say it was dominant, but it wasn't flashy. Coming off the Bills game, that was flashy. Bucs 31, Eagles 15 in this one. Bucs cover the 9.5-point spread to get the victory in this one down in Tampa.
Yeah, Eagles really just couldn't get anything going until the fourth quarter. It's also not a good time or a really good game when your starting quarterback is your leading rusher with 39 yards. We were pulling for the Eagles in that one with Dev, our other roommate, being an Eagles fan. But, it was tough to see. Tom Brady was just being Tom Brady. And, the better team just won. Just straight simple. The better team won.
Yeah, the crazy thing about this is the Bucs definitely have the better roster as a top 3 roster in the NFL, and I think that's what showed. But if you look at some of the stats, like you said, a lot of them in garbage time, which it is what it is, so not crazy. But Jalen Hurts 23 of 43 for 258 yards, a touchdown and 2 picks. Those 2 picks against the Bucs and Tom Brady are going to kill you no matter who you're playing. The Bucs are going to take advantage of those turnovers. But like you said, the Eagles, the number 1 rushing team in the league going into this game, are held to well under 100 rushing yards, and Jalen Hurts as their leading rusher with 39 yards. Keyshawn Vaughn stepped in for playoff Lenny, who we'll see if we get playoff Lenny back here soon. But Keyshawn Vaughn, 53 yards and a touchdown. But Tom Brady, 29 of 37, 271 yards and 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. And oddly enough, the Buccaneers decide to blow the over-under and not kick the field goal in the last 2 minutes of the game, which would have put it at 49 points, and the over 47.5 would have hit. Yet here we are 2 days later, 3 days later, still wonder why they didn't kick a field goal.
Folks, so just to let y'all know, that was a rough time in the household. Someone was not very happy that they didn't go for the field goal. It was not shocking that they didn't go for the field goal, but just to let y'all know, we're doing okay now.
It didn't make sense on the 3rd and 1 play. The 3rd and 1 play where Bucs fall short for 4th and 1. You're looking at the score, 31-15. It's a 16-point game. If the Eagles get the turnover on downs on 4th and 1, they are able, which they ended up doing, first of all, they're able to go down, score, 2-point conversion, onside kick. It's the NFL. Anything can happen. It is what it is. You kick the field goal there, you're up 19. No matter which way you slice it, the game is officially over. It was frustrating for me. Tampa just wanted to end the game and try and get the first down. Tom Brady refused to get off the field, but the Bucs are now dealing with some injuries, especially on the offensive line with Tristan Wirfs going out. Ryan Jensen got injured during the game as well. Old Jaguar faithful Josh Wells stepped in and on his first play allowed a sack of Tom Brady. So that's what we had going on in Jacksonville too. The Bucs need to get Tristan Wirfs healthy for this matchup against the Rams after what they showed on Monday night against the Cardinals, which we'll get to here shortly. 49ers Cowboys was the second game on Sunday, the 4:30 game, a time slot both of these teams are very comfortable in, and it was the Nickelodeon slime game. Come on, slime me. Oh, they forgot to put the slime above me. I was hoping I would get slimed. 49ers 23, Cowboys 17, and this game could have been a lot uglier, but the 49ers allowed the Cowboys to stick around.
Yeah, they did. I thought from the first drive, I thought it was going to be over for the Cowboys right from then and there if they didn't get something going. But they made some adjustments the second half to try and stop San Francisco. And then offensively, they found ways to make their way back. And unfortunately, they just they came up short at the end with some questionable play calling. But I mean, the Cowboys itself they had too many mistakes. I think they had 14 penalties. Too many offensive sacks. It was tough for the Cowboys because they had opportunities and they were just blowing them away.
Yeah, 8 of those 14 penalties either negated a first down for the Cowboys or awarded the first down for the 49ers. And we saw that on the last drive. The 49ers had the ball back with about 5 minutes left, and the Cowboys made the stop, and there was a penalty that got the 49ers a first down. And it happened twice on the last drive where the 49ers were stymied, and the Cowboys did something stupid that caused a first down in favor of the 49ers, and then that caused the Cowboys to get the ball back with under a minute left versus over 3 minutes left, which who knows what could have happened. It was 23-17. So if the Cowboys just end up finding their groove in the last drive, that's a 24-23 game right there for the Cowboys. However, I will say I'm happy to see the 49ers moving on because I think they are a more intriguing team going up against the Packers than the Cowboys are. The Cowboys definitely have more talent and firepower, but the better team won this game. The better team throughout the season won this game. I don't think anyone's going to question that. And the thing I like most about the 49ers is they don't try and fake who they are. They are who they are. They're like, we're going to score 21 to 28 points a game, whatever it takes, but our defense is going to step up and play well, which they did in this game, and they're just going to get the job done. That's exactly what happened with the 49ers.
Yeah, exactly. I think you found something with Elijah Mitchell going 27 carries, 96 yards and a touchdown. So I think he got something good moving forward. And I think for future references, they need to hold on to Deebo Samuel. Do not get rid of that man. Protect him at all costs because he's the next real deal. I think he really is.
Yeah, he's the next real deal. And as a Jaguar fan, I can only hope that the Jaguar are trying to figure out how to use Travis Etienne in a similar way in this offense. I don't know if they'll be able to, but he is the real deal. He's a great player. But Brandon Ayuk actually led the team in receiving with 5 catches and 66 yards, which was nice for him because he's a player that a lot of 49er fans for the longest time have been waiting to kind of break out on the scene. So this was good for him. Jimmy Garoppolo didn't have the craziest of days. Like you said, it was Elijah Mitchell who kind of took over on the offense. Garoppolo just 16 to 25 for 172 yards in an interception. So like nothing crazy from him. I think the Cowboys, they need to start reevaluating the running back position because Zeke Elliott, 12 carries for 31 yards. as an elite running back in this league, that's not going to cut it, especially come playoff time. You have to be better than that.
Yeah, absolutely. It sucks, Especially I had him in fantasy too. He's been on and off all season, and it is it the time now to start looking at other options. I mean, you have Tony Pollard, who's a great guy, but he's probably more of a special teams player. So I wonder if this is a time where the Cowboys might be looking for a running back in upcoming drafts. Who knows? We'll see what the offseason holds.
Seems like the fans there really love Tony Pollard as well. So we'll see how he plays into the mix moving forward for the Cowboys. 49ers going on to play Green Bay. We'll get to that here in just a second. The fifth game and the final game on Sunday, actually, the Sunday nighter, Chiefs versus Steelers. Big Ben's curtain call, steel curtain call. In this game, I think a lot of people in this game thought this was or knew this was going to be his final game, thought this was going to be a blowout. That's exactly what it turned into, but I don't want to take away what the Steelers were able to do to the Chiefs in the first quarter of this game and make them look incompetent. They may have written the defensive playbook for future teams to be able to handle the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, I think when we saw in the first quarter defensively, I think we saw what the Steelers could have been all season. And I think we kind of saw what the Chiefs looked like at the beginning of the season, because you remember the Chiefs they didn't look good at all at the beginning of the season. Patrick Mahomes wasn't making his throws. I think there was a lot of communication issues. Defensively, they were just absolutely horrid until they finally got it together. And I was afraid we were going to see that for the rest of the game, but then the Chiefs finally got things going. I think Andy Reid found his burger to get it going. Maybe Patrick Mahomes maybe kicked his brother out of the stadium, and maybe that's what got things going. But we finally saw the Chiefs become the Chiefs in the second quarter, and I think after that first touchdown, it was over at that point. It was done. Patrick Mahomes, 30-39 for 404 yards and 5 tutters, and Travis Kelce even got himself a tutter. He threw himself a touchdown pass. Took him 9 years to do it, and his mom saw it.
Well, yeah, I wonder if there's a direct correlation between amount of Jackson Mahomes TikToks and Kansas City Chiefs losses during the games on Sunday. I mean, that might be a statistic we have to look into, because the team looked completely different come the second quarter. It's almost like the TJ Watt fumble recovery touchdown flipped a switch for the Kansas City Chiefs, and they just didn't look back. I mean, Mahomes was throwing to wide open receivers. He was throwing to not just trash cans, waste management, open top dumpsters in the corner of the end zone. He had people wide open and no one was even around. So he took off and he really put the nail in the coffin for the Steelers, and the Chiefs end up covering as well. And we'll see how this carries over, because if they play this Jekyll and Hyde type game against the Bills in the next matchup, that's going to be something to watch, because the Bills are going to take advantage of that. So the Chiefs can't come out flat. Maybe it was, first round jitters. Maybe it was just a little playoff rust, whatever it is. Who knows? But I think at the end of the day, the Chiefs are the Chiefs. And as Floppy Tom always says, water always finds its level. And that's exactly what happened here in this game for the Kansas City Chiefs. I have a question for you. Big Ben out in Pittsburgh, presumably. He hasn't come out and officially announced retirement. Do they stick with Mason Rudolph? Do they have to draft someone? What is next for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Because as a fan of a team that has consistently missed on quarterbacks, the Steelers could very well waste Najee Harris's prime by missing on a few quarterbacks if they don't make the right calls.
Yeah, I will say this about Big Ben. If he is officially done, as seeing him twice a year being in the AFC North, as being a Ravens fan, he pissed me off every time I see him on the field when he plays us. But I tip my cap to Big Ben. 17th season, I believe one of the best to probably ever play. Dude was hard to bring down. He was the guy. If you open up a book of toughness in a dictionary, you probably find him. So he's had an outstanding career. So if this is it for Big Ben, and I tip my cap on a great career. But to answer your question, Justin, I honestly think you don't go with Mason Rudolph. I don't think you go with Dwayne Haskins. I think you got to find your next future quarterback in the draft. Even though they're not really some of the best quarterbacks right now in this class, but I think there might be some guys like, I don't know, maybe like a Matt Corral or my guy Sam Howell. You get somebody like that, someone who kind of understands what it means to be Steeler football, and I think those two kind of go into that equation. So, but I think I think they got to find somebody in the draft.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go, and maybe they go out and find a veteran free agent. Maybe Ryan Fitzpatrick has his shirt back on after the Bills game, and he wants
Oh
to come
yeah, that's
back and
true.
play. Maybe they find Josh Johnson. He's a journeyman of all journeymen. But they may have to find just a placeholder until they find their guy. What I would love to see is if Kenny Pickett can somehow end up a Pittsburgh Steeler, just
Oh
because it'd
yeah,
be
that's
great.
true.
It'd be
I
great
think
to
about
see
him.
a Pitt Panther stay in Pittsburgh. The city would absolutely love that. That would be amazing. And Pittsburgh being one of my top 5 favorite cities, I'd be happy for them.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be surprising. I completely forgot about Pickett. I mean, it's happened before when they got James Conner. They drafted him
Mm-hmm.
from Pittsburgh. So I mean, yeah, I think fans would love that.
And didn't oh yeah, James Conner and now obviously Connor's in Arizona. I was thinking of Larry Fitzgerald because he was another Pitt great, and I always think back to that Madden cover with him on the cover with Troy Polamalu.
Yeah,
And
there's
I
actually he's
always
actually also on NCAA 2004, 2005 when he was at Pitt.
Yeah, with the Pitt uniform on. So it's
Yep.
pretty much love for the Pitt Panthers. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. My favorite Big Ben memory, 2007, the Jaguars marching into Heinz Field twice in the same season and coming out victorious, once in the regular season and once in the wild card round of that year, moving on to lose to the Patriots in the divisional round, as is tradition for the Jaguars. I think the last 4 trips to the playoffs, the Jaguars have been knocked out by the Patriots. Just going to say that. My second favorite memory of Big Ben as a Steeler, 2017, when the Jaguars marched into Pittsburgh and Heinz Field and came away victorious twice, once in the regular season and once in the playoffs against the Steelers to then again go on and lose to the Patriots in the conference championship. So there's just something about the Jaguars playing the Steelers, then losing to the Patriots that I can't get over, but it's something that's there and relevant in my life that I have to accept. So let's move on to the final game of Super Wildcard Weekend, Rams versus Cardinals. And right when we thought we might have a barn burner, an exciting game to watch and enjoy on a Monday night, a beautiful Martin Luther King Day evening with a beautiful football game, Rams Cardinals divisional matchup. The Cardinals come out and look like the Jaguars and lose 34-11 to the Rams. What's interesting about this was the third time these teams faced each other, and each team won at the other team's home field during the season. Cardinals march into SoFi Stadium in LA and absolutely lay an egg. Kyler Murray looked just way too small to play quarterback. I think the tape is out on Kyler Murray. I want him to succeed. I think he's a great story, but part of me he just doesn't look comfortable ever, obviously in large part due to the Rams defense. But even before this week, they finished the season 1-5. And they haven't had DeAndre Hopkins. I get it. James Conner, Chase Edmonds have been on and off being hurt. But Kyler Murray, if you're going to be a top 5, top 10 quarterback in the league, you have to be better than what you were on Monday night against the Rams.
I think it just showed which team was more prepared. The Rams or the Cardinals, and I think the Rams were just out. They just outplayed them. They outsmarted them. They did everything they could to get their game plan going to beat the Cardinals. That's exactly what they did.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense. I said the same thing about the Bills Patriots when I was thinking about that game. Is the Rams are currently in a position of just being more prepared to go deep in the playoffs. The Cardinals, injuries, immaturity, whatever it is, JJ Watt's also out, even though he's a phony. He was able to get on TV and put out a hype video. So shout out JJ for being a phony. But the Cardinals just are not prepared for that deep playoff run. And we were talking to Debbo about this the other day. There's some teams that make the playoffs that are prepared for greatness. There's some teams that make the playoffs that this is the first stepping stone towards greatness. And I think that's what this game showed is the Rams, they go out and get Matt Stafford in the offseason. He struggled towards the end of the season. OBJ comes in and starts playing out of his mind. First touchdown score, plus 900 for me, like that. And he comes in and just changes the dynamic of the offense. They get Cam Akers back. Tyler Higbee shows up. And, of course, we can't forget Cooper Kupp, the best receiver in the NFL this season. I mean, the Rams are a team to be reckoned with, and the Buccaneers are going to have their hands full when the Rams march into Tampa Bay this coming week.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to be healthy, you're healthy at the right time right now. Now, Matt Stafford finally got his first playoff win, so congrats to him. And I think that's something that's going to keep him moving forward is the drive to keep getting more. Drive for more playoff wins, drive for greatness. So it's going to be an interesting matchup next week in Tampa Bay.
And Blake Bortles still has more playoff victories than Matt Stafford, despite entering the league about 7 years after Matt Stafford. So something to keep in mind. Or no, about 4 years after Matt Stafford, I think. Was Matt Stafford 09 or 08?
He was 2009, I believe,
9.
2009.
So Blake Bortles with 2 playoff victories has more playoff victories than Dak Prescott, has more playoff victories than Matt Stafford. And fun fact, speaking of Dak Prescott, Jaguars since 1996 are 7-7 in the playoffs, whereas the Dallas Cowboys are 4-11 in the playoffs since 1996. And the Jaguars have 3 AFC championship appearances in that stretch, and the Cowboys have 0. So do you take quality over quantity? Personally, I would actually take quantity. I want to be in the playoffs more. But when the Jaguars get there, they do seem to find a way to win some games, which is always nice. So definitely a great Super Wildcard weekend. Any closing thoughts on Super Wildcard weekend, Matt?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was great to see football. You talked about how great it was for Monday night. I thought it was kind of strange to watch a playoff game on a Monday night, but I mean, you had Peyton and Eli, so it made all things even worth it. But some decent games this week, but it just prepares us for even better football next week.
Some fantastic football this week coming up, and it's beautiful. And if you're watching on YouTube, go find our second video of this episode where we'll be breaking down the divisional matchups coming up this week in the NFL. It's going to be a great video and some great previews of these matchups. We have 4 great matchups Saturday, Sunday, leading into conference championship weekend. If you're listening on Spotify, iHeart, Google, stick right here. It is right here on this podcast platform. But I do want to give a quick shout out to Cimarron Golf Club for the job they do over there off County Road 210 right here in Jacksonville, Florida. A beautiful golf course. They've done some great maintenance to it. Beautiful driving range. It's nice neighborhood, tight fairways. You maybe hit some houses as well, some windows. If you like hitting balls in the water, it could be a good spot for you as well. But no, really just a fun golf course. Go check out Cimarron Golf Club off County Road 210 just west of St. John's Parkway. But